Well, happy Thursday, everybody. Bill O'Leary coming to you live. Legacy Planning Law Group. I'm an estate and elder law attorney and probate attorney. My firm is Legacy Planning Law Group, and coming to you live for those that are stumbling across me for the first time. This is a weekly thing that we do, a series that we call our Thirsty Thursday series. Okay, so it's every Thursday at about this time. I go live and whatever topic sort of has come to my mind earlier in the week that we see here, that we come across here, maybe something I'm reading in the news or whatnot. So I go live and I talk about it, okay? Some topic that relates to the kind of law that we do here at my firm. Again, wills, trusts, and estates and elder law. So if you're thirsting for knowledge, you come to the right place. So today's topic, I was thinking, what would be sort of a good topic to talk about, and it's something I've had several instances come up recently, and that's the issue of caregiving for an elderly loved one. So the question is hiring a caregiver. So should you go about sort of hiring someone yourself, or maybe go through an agency? So a lot of seniors naturally they want to stay at home for as long as possible instead of moving into a nursing home or skilled nursing facility. And for many families, okay, this means eventually hiring a caregiver to look after an aging relative. So there are basically two ways to go about it. One, through a home health agency or caregiving agency, or two, just hiring someone directly. So the agency route, what does that look like? So when you hire somebody through an agency, understand the agency is the employer. They're the ones hiring that person, or maybe on an independent contractor basis, but it's not you, the one that's hiring. So you don't need to worry about tax issues and liability issues. The agency takes care of that. They take that on of screening these people, doing background checks, and providing the necessary insurance. In addition, a licensed agency, they have to provide ongoing supervision to the employees, and the level of that supervision will vary depending on whether the agency actually has W-2 employees versus 1099 contractors. But there is a certain sort of minimum level of supervision. So this can help these people, these caregivers, deal with difficult family situations or changing needs going through an agency. And the good thing about an agency is they may be able to provide you a backup if a regular caregiver, for whatever reason, is not available. Okay, so there's some flexibility there. Now, the downside of going through an agency is not having as much input into the selection of the caregiver. And some agencies are better at that than others. Another thing to think about is that caregivers may change. They may quit, or they may go to some other residence, take care of somebody else. So that can cause disruption in the care that's given, confusion by your elderly loved one that may have gotten used to this person. What about the other way to do that? Hiring directly. Yes, you can also hire somebody directly. The benefit of hiring a caregiver directly is you have more control. Typically, more control over who you hire, and you can choose someone who you feel is just right for your family, whereas you may not have quite that level of sort of control working through an agency. Another benefit of going directly is that hiring privately a lot of times is a little less expensive than going through an agency. Now, so a little bit more about the direct hire situation. A lot of times this is done by entering into what's called a caregiver contract. Look, although people are willing to sort of voluntarily care for a parent or a loved one, a lot of times the family member is willing to do that without any sort of promise or assurance of being paid for it. Entering into a caregiver contract with a family member can have a number of benefits. By the way, this caregiver contract, is also known as a personal service contract or a personal care agreement. So what this does is it actually rewards the family member who's doing the work. And a lot of times that sort of falls on the shoulders of one family member rather than others. Think, several children, and it falls on the daughter. So it's a way to compensate the daughter. And it can also help sort of alleviate tension between family members by making sure that the work that they do is fairly compensated. Also, very important, a care contract, a caregiving contract can be part of, a very important part of Medicaid planning, because it can help your elderly loved one that may have too many assets to qualify for Medicaid right now. It's a way to sort of spend down their excess assets or savings so that they can more easily qualify for Medicaid long-term care coverage. But rather than spending them down by paying some facility, they are paying, let's say, a family member who is already serving in that caregiver role. Okay? So, a few things to consider when dealing with this caregiver contract, personal service contract, it's often called. Meet with an attorney. Do not try this yourself. It's important to get your attorney's help in preparing the contract, especially if Medicaid is the goal. Why? Because Medicaid needs to approve that contract. You don't want to try to home cook this yourself and then you send it in and Medicaid kicks that back. That's a recipe really for disaster. Another thing to consider is, what are the caregiver's duties? What are their duties? What do they have to do? So the contract should clearly lay out the caregiver's duties, which can be anything from driving to doctor's appointments, maybe attending doctor's meetings, going grocery shopping, helping pay the bills. The length of the contract, the term of the contract, usually is tied to your elderly loved one's remaining life expectancy. If you sort of look at the life expectancy tables out there. So it's important to cover all of the possibilities, because it could last for quite some time. And even if those caregiving services are not needed right now, the contract can continue, by the way, even if your elderly loved one enters into a nursing home, because the caregiver that maybe was providing the care at home can continue sort of acting as your elderly loved one's sort of the advocate to ensure the best possible care at the nursing home. Payment is another important thing to think about. So you can make payment to this caregiver either in a lump sum or sort of in installments, maybe weekly or monthly, whatever you might be comfortable with. Now, if Medicaid eligibility is the goal, a lump sum payment is much better, because it's a way to quickly use up or sort of absorb excess assets much more quickly. And thankfully, here in Florida, our Medicaid program here allows for a lump sum payment, which in effect basically front loads that contract. Not all state Medicaid programs allow sort of an upfront lump sum. Florida does. It's also very important that this pay or this compensation, that it not be excessive, okay? Because why? If it's excessive compensation, then Medicaid might say, well, that's really not compensation for services, but at least part of that is a gift, and that's going to cause a problem with Medicaid. So this compensation, this pay, should be similar to what other caregivers in the area are making, and preferably maybe just a little bit less than sort of the going rate, just to be conservative. Now, to calculate the lump sum payment, what you do is you basically take whatever reasonable rate you've decided upon based upon sort of a market survey, and you multiply it by your loved one's remaining life expectancy. That's how you arrive at the lump sum payment. Another issue is taxes. Keep in mind there are tax consequences with a care contract. The caregiver is going to have to pay taxes on what they receive, because it is income. So you're the employer, and as the employer, you're responsible for what? Well, filing payroll taxes, filing tax forms, verifying that this person can legally work in the United States. And oh, by the way, if you pay more than $2,300 in wages here in 2021, if you pay more than that, you need to do withholding. You need to withhold and pay Social Security and Medicare taxes. And oh, by the way, if you pay more than $1,500 in wages this year, you need to pay unemployment taxes. So be mindful of that if you go the just direct hire route. In addition, a private caregiver, they may not have their own liability insurance or workers' compensation. So if an accident occurs on the job, you could be responsible. And then the last thing that you should consider with a personal caregiving contract is other sources of payment. What if your elderly loved one does not have enough money to pay the caregiver? Are there ways that you can make that payment, other sources of payment? Well, there are. You might consider if there is a long-term care insurance policy in place. That can cover the cost of family caregivers, okay? There also may be a federal or state program in place to compensate family caregivers, and I would encourage you to check with Elder Source. They're a local nonprofit that's there to support seniors, or maybe your local council on aging. So, if you'd like to know more about the whole process of caregiving and what's the best route to go, either through an agency or direct hire, and especially if this is part of sort of Medicaid planning, we'd love to talk to you. So we encourage you to go ahead and schedule a free 15-minute discovery phone call. Just go to our website, legacyplanninglawgroup.com, legacyplanninglawgroup.com, select the Book Now button for a free 15-minute discovery phone call, chance for you to sort of tell us what's on your mind, so that way we can tell you if we can help you, and we can start the process, start a conversation to see whether we might be a good fit, okay? So with that, hey, if you've enjoyed this video, I'd ask that you like it, better yet, share it with your friends, just trying to get the word out. So I hope you've enjoyed this talk about hiring a caregiver and whether you should, do a direct hire yourself or go through an agency. As I said at the beginning, I plan on giving another talk next Thursday at about this time. Plan on going live as part of our Thirsty Thursday Facebook Live series. So again, same day and time, just a different topic. So if you're thirsting for knowledge, you've come to the right place. So, hey, on behalf of everybody here at my firm, Team Legacy, it's a great team that I have. Clients love them. Bill O'Leary signing off for now. Go make it a great day and a better world.